From Informa Tech Target, I'm David Essex, and this is Enterprise Apps Unpacked. The incredible rise of generative AI and more recently agentic AI, the kind that can set goals for itself and make decisions, seems to put more jobs at risk than any technology in history. I sometimes joke with my colleagues that it was okay when robots took away factory jobs, but when Gen AI arrived in 2022 with its human-like language abilities, now it was coming for white-collar jobs like mine. Now things are really getting serious. The standard retort from corporate executives is that people will be able to do more highly valued work that only humans can do. When you ask how, they say people will get trained, reskilled, upskilled for this new work. It sounds easy to say, something to throw people off the scent while you make plans to lay people off, or never hire them in the first place, because AI is now handling a lot of the work, especially entry-level jobs. But assumptions should never get in the way of facts. I want to know what's really going on at companies that are adopting AI in a big way. I like talking to leaders at the IT consultancies of the Big Four accounting firms, Deloitte, EY, KPMG, and PwC. They have hands-on experience implementing technology for some of the world's biggest companies. Sure, they're in business to make money, and they have huge partnerships with enterprise software vendors, but they seem like straight shooters giving practical advice that is somehow both in-depth and wide-ranging. Today's guest, Joe Deppa, is the Chief Innovation Officer at EY, the company that used to be known as Ernst & Young. He leads EY's effort to use leading-edge technologies, especially AI and data, to improve its internal processes and then share what it learned with clients. We talked about how EY trains employees to use AI, how AI is automating parts of the business, and what employees are saying about all the changes. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to Enterprise Apps Unpacked for the real story on the software that runs your business. Well, Joe, thanks very much for coming on the podcast today.
It's great to see you. Good to be here, David.
Can you give our listeners an overview of EY's process for training its employees on AI?
Absolutely. We've got a very clear mandate in our minds about we want all of our employees to be trained with AI. And the way that we think about it is we put people at the core of everything we do. And so for our 400,000 employees, we have various options available for training. One is we have foundational AI learnings. And so most of our employees, almost all of our employees, take some foundational AI learning courses as part of their roles. And that gives you the baseline around a broad awareness around what AI is, how to use it. And we've got some dynamic learning experiences as a part of that. It's actually really good training. But then we also offer something called Meet Our Employees Where They Are. And what that means is there's also additional training that you could take based on your job description and your profile, or if you're just interested. And so we have 3 additional curriculums. One is what we called Applied AI Skills. And that basically goes from foundational awareness to how do I actually use AI, particularly in our internal tools we call UIQ and Microsoft Copilot. So this is going to allow now you to apply the AI skills at your client or within your job function. The second is what we call delivering and engineering. And so what we do there is we actually partner with external vendors as well. And then you can actually create micro tests and accreditations in some areas like responsible AI, applied AI, and AI strategy. And the third opportunity is if you want to do something for clients in particular, we have an AI skills for consulting that's comprised over 30 tailored blended learning programs just for consulting professionals and just based on the type of work that they're going to apply at their clients. And so we think that this is the right strategy. It's all about our employees having options, but also feeling like we can meet them where they are in terms of, are they interested in foundational AI awareness? Do they want to now apply that? Do they need to have delivery and engineering tailored content with outside perspective, or are they focused in on client solutions? And this allows us to make sure that our employees feel equipped to leverage AI responsibly for their jobs.
So can we drill down a little into how EY decided to do this, or more accurately, I guess, the methods that you came up with? What kind of research did you put into this? What kind of input did you maybe get from employees or even education experts and maybe AI specialists about how to make this training effective?
Absolutely. There's a few things we do. One is after every training course, of course, we have input in the survey as a result of that. And we look at those and take those very seriously. And we adjust based on how people are applying that in terms of their AI curriculums that they learned. The second is we've got learning teams, and we have an extensive team of learning professionals within EY who specialize just on this, which is how do I bring the best training into the training curriculum programs for our teams. And we've also got a team of another 70,000 technologists worldwide who are specialists in some way in terms of training. And this allows us to get all of that input and really focus in on how do we create the right training programs for our people. The last component that I think is really, really critical and becoming even more critical is about how do we leverage our ecosystem. And so instead of us just talking to ourselves the whole time, we want to make sure that we are leveraging our global ecosystem. So this is working with our partners. It's working with some of the major technology vendors. We can work directly, for example, with Coursera and Microsoft. We can work with Copilot. We can understand how our clients are thinking about training. And this allows us to really make sure that we're not missing anything and that we're really bringing the best of what is happening in the industry to date. As you know, right now, this world is moving so fast. It's really, really hard to keep up with. And I found that the ecosystem allows you to do that. If you can tap into the ecosystem, it allows you to understand where the market is going, and hopefully you can be better prepared to deliver those solutions for your training programs.
Mm-hmm. What is the typical training experience like, if it's possible to even say typical? So is a lot of this just embedded in people's daily workflow? Because I know a lot of online education tools are like that nowadays. Or do some people even either do online full courses, or do some people even do in-person courses?
And I think this is back to that conversation we had around meeting our employees where they are. I think that's really critical in terms of how we're thinking about this. One is we offer both physical and online courses. We find that flexibility is really important. The second is it's not just one size fits all. And so as you'd expect, there's no single person with the UI that's going to have exactly the same job and therefore not going to have exactly the same AI learning experience. And so what we found is that some people, it's better to have what we call bite-sized learnings, where they can just review something really quick. There's others that want deep, in-depth learning programs. There's some that require face-to-face. There's some that require self-study. There's some that want to do even more advanced programs. And so what we try to do is make sure that we give the options and the flexibility to our employees to take advantage of that. A couple examples that we've launched recently is we launched what we call an Insight AI podcast series. And those are what we call optional that people can listen into. And this basically allows regular updates on what's happening in the world. We do it about once a month. And we've created one now for what we call generalist, or just want to understand the basics. And we've got one for very deep technical details. And we just launched it a few months ago. And we already have more than 65,000 viewers out of our 400,000. And that's an optional series that we just launched. And so I think that tells you the appetite that our employees have to learn more and to continue to learn at a rapid pace. The second one we launched is AI Now. That's more for what we call general awareness. It's more bite-sized content, but honestly, it's the most highly consumed learning of all time. We've got 89% of the firm right now have completed that series, AI Now. And so that gives you just some, what it tells me is that there's just such a strong appetite because the world of AI is moving so quickly. So we have to be able to meet our employees where they are and give them flexibility on how they're going to consume that content.
How is AI itself being used in the educational process to help with the training about AI?
Yeah, AI, training AI, what we call, we have three components around this. And we do leverage AI in several ways to train our people. And one is called Embed Within. And so in January of this year, one of the first things we did is we rolled out this foundational AI Now training. And what it does is it actually uses Gen AI within the solution. So it covers how you can use generative AI as a thought partner. It provides you the ability to leverage those prompts with the UIQ. We have embedded AI coaches that are teaching you along the way that can help you understand how to better your prompts. And it also answers questions for you, almost like a Coursera coach. We've got in that role play with AI. So we've actually introduced it, and people really like this, by the way, which is you can actually practice. So let's say that you're going to go deliver an AI solution for a client, and you've got to go have a presentation with the C-suite of that client. What you can actually do with the AI solutions now within our training program is interact with the AI, and the AI gives you real-time feedback, including how to practice critical conversations, how to rephrase things, how to highlight moments that matter. And what I found really interesting about the role-playing program is that AI has gotten so much better about really being able to articulate how a human's going to respond to certain ways that we talk about AI. And last but not least, but I think it's really important to talk about, is learning by doing. So we've actually empowered people to build their own AI agents. So we've got an agent factory that you can go, and David, you can go, and I can go build our own agent, and it supports your work. It tells you how to do it. And you can actually create agents to help make your work more effective and more efficient, to free you up to work on other things. And we're finding a lot of people are really enjoying that experience of building their own AI agent as well.
Mhm. I would imagine that the type of training and the type of AI that they're being trained on would vary according to job title. And I'm wondering, for example, about software developer versus administrative person, or maybe at EY it's more typically, maybe there's an auditor. But I know you're on the consulting side. I mean, there's the IT consulting side, but then there's also the traditional accounting and auditing and assurance side. So can you give an example or two of how the training might differ a bit for a couple of different job roles?
Absolutely. And again, when you have a workforce of 400,000, you're 100% right. The needs are going to vary by every single individual. And so we have to give that flexibility. I shared the 4 personas that we've developed our training for. There's the awareness persona, general awareness. There's applied skills, so being able to apply that. There's shaping the client solutions. And then there's the software delivery and engineering persona. And those are the 4. And so if I bring that to life for an example, what I would say is, for awareness, for example, somebody in an HR function or a back office function, they may want to just know how to use Copilot, how to write emails more effectively. They may then therefore just take our general awareness training, and we have something called EYQ, which is a generative AI LLM that we've developed just for EY employees. And this allows them to use that, and it allows them to use that in a safe environment. And this is webinars, there's examples, there's playbooks. And so that's, on one side of the spectrum. We have most of our employees that have completed that. Then we have, like you said, software developer may have a completely different requirement in terms of what they want to learn. And so we have, for example, what we call applied AI and AI engineering badges that they can complete. And so many of our software developers have dozens of these badges, which would indicate how many hours they've taken of online learning, the application of those, the ability to pass the test for those. And that delivery and engineering training and track is going to be much more intensive and much more focused on the application of the AI models into the agents, and then running those agents for the business or for the clients. And so we give both paths and multiple paths for that reason. It allows people the flexibility to continue to upskill and reskill themselves, but also gives people the opportunity to make sure that we can meet them where they are if that is not required for their job.
Mm-hmm. My impression of various companies who are dealing with AI, the tsunami of AI, including our own company at Informa TechTarget, it seems like there's a debate about how to encourage use of AI and maybe how to sometimes require it. And I'm sensing that there's some, I think, uncertainty about whether you make it a policy or whether you just make the tools available. So how does EY deal with that issue, and how much of the training is actually mandatory versus how much is optional?
At EY, we've taken the approach that there is going to be some mandatory training, in particular when it comes to regulatory and risk training. That's non-optional, right? There's some part of our employee base that is required to take certain trainings around data privacy, security, and risk. And so I think that's going to be standard at most companies. However, beyond that, what we've said is encouragement is the key. And we believe that mandating is not really going to drive the right behavior. And so what we've said is we encourage, and we highly encourage you to take this training. If you don't take this training, you're likely going to fall behind in your job compared to some of your peers. Mm. And so we've created something called Thrive Time, which is basically designed to encourage people to take some of this training. And what's interesting about this approach is it's actually works. So our foundational program that I talked about, which is the general awareness of around AI, it has an 89% opt-in rate. 89% of the firm has completed that training. And that was assigned, but not mandated. And so I think it's a really clear indicator that providing optional training that's high quality, that gives them what they need to do their jobs more effectively, people want that. And frankly, they want that at a pace that sometimes we can't even keep up with. And so I think that encouragement is going to be even more important as you look to the future of how training is going to be adopted with most organizations.
Mhm. How are people reacting to all of this? Is it going well in terms of adoption and maybe employee satisfaction?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you think about that, of the 400,000 people, 89% have taken that foundational AI learning course, which is not required. 89%, right? It tells you, and that's over 4 million learning hours year to date. What that tells you is our employees are finding it helpful. They're finding it, when we look at the metrics, they want more of it. We've also found that people that have used some of these tools in their day-to-day life in terms of how they're actually delivering work for their clients, they have actually expressed a better retention, a better employee engagement number than our employees that are not using these tools. And we can see very clearly in the data that that's what's going on. And so what we're seeing is employees want more AI training. They want to leverage the AI tools. When they do leverage the AI tools, they feel like it's helping them do their jobs more effectively. They can focus more on the work that they want to focus on. And so therefore our retention rates are higher and our employee satisfaction is higher. So I think we're going to see that trend continuing to grow as more and more of our teams get trained in how to leverage AI.
What's the number one thing that employees seem to struggle with the most in trying to learn AI?
I think we're all struggling with it, and I try to stay on top of this, but it's so hard because the pace is moving so fast. So I would argue that the first thing is the pace of change. So you learn something, and then the next day something new comes out, and so you got to keep up with that pace. And what we learned is that sometimes that the AI developments are moving at a faster pace than any of us can create training programs for. And so therefore our training can't be static. We're always refreshing, always revising. We're offering podcast series. We're offering bite-sized series because as soon as we release it, it's already old. And I think it's a really important point for everybody, myself included, to make sure that you stay on in terms of the latest and greatest of what's going on with AI. The second is making sure that the training is relevant to the roles. So there's some really interesting training. You can create fun graphics. You can create music now. But then what we find is, while it's fun and it's exciting for a few days or hours to work with these, if it's not applicable to their day-to-day roles, they don't find value in it, as you'd expect. So we want to make sure that we can keep up with the pace of change, and we can also make sure that it's relevant for what they do and how they're going to deliver to their clients. And it can't just be generic. It has to be tailored to really add impact into their day-to-day lives.
What kinds of metrics do you have set up to try to gauge how well people are learning?
We look at a few things. One is we've got two tools that we really focus in here. We've developed this EY.AI, EYQ tool, which is our internal generative AI tool I mentioned. And we've got a very high user adoption rate. This is not mandated. We've got a user adoption rate of 81% right now. And it tells you that on a day-to-day occurrence, most people are using our internal generative AI tool that we developed. It's somewhere that they can go and it hopefully helps them do their job more effectively. The second is we've also procured over 150,000 M365 Copilot licenses in 140 countries. And so that's allowing us now to be actually one of the largest Copilot deployments in the world. And what we found in the survey results so far is 92% of the users that have used Copilot have said that they want to continue the use of that regularly. And they saw big potential in its use, 92%. So 92% that are using it are saying we see big potential in this use and we want to continue to use it. 84% of the staff is feeling more comfortable with integrating AI into their daily tasks. So I think those metrics are a couple that we're watching, is our EYQ adoption, but also our Microsoft Copilot deployment and the amount of people that are saying that they're finding it productive.
Quite a few of EY's services seem like they might really lend themselves to a lot of automation by AI, for example, auditing, and maybe there's something on the consulting side too. How is EY already using AI to automate some of that work?
Absolutely. We have something that we call Client Zero. And one of the things that we do is we want to test and learn on ourselves first. We've got, as you would imagine, there's so many different technologies now. And so it's really important that we filter out through the noise and we test on our own data and our own employees first, make sure we learn from it before we release to our clients. And so I think that that's always the very first thing we do, is we want to make sure that we're leveraging whatever tools and technologies around automation on ourselves first. And when I look at that, we found tremendous opportunities both for growth but also value and productivity. We recently announced a solution called EY.AI for risk, and it's looking at our risk technology and the way that we leverage our risk practice to deliver not only productivity gains, which is going to happen, but also quality, right? So the quality of the way that we deliver risk solutions to our clients, focused in on risk mitigation, stakeholder engagement, and of course, innovation around risk is a great example of opportunities that we created for growth. And then we've got on the other side of the coin, value in productivity. And I think it's important to talk about that when we come to AI, which is we've seen already tremendous productivity gains. We've got 50 tax AI agents in development. We have 20 in active service delivery with our clients. And this allows us to move faster with new products and new services with tax, which allows us to scale that. And when I think about tax, what that then does is it allows your teams not to focus in on the remedial tasks of just sort of filling in the paperwork from a tax profile perspective, but now your teams can actually focus in on the strategy behind tax and how is tax going. For example, some of the geopolitical changes in the world in terms of tariffs, how do you make sure that you address those as from a tax strategy perspective? So it's freed up our teams to focus in on more strategic projects as well. So I think all in all, the benefit has been quite good.
Mm-hmm. What has the transition been like for people whose maybe a lot of their tasks or a significant number of their tasks have been automated? And you mentioned moving into more strategic work. It's something we hear a lot about in connection with AI automation, but I'm wondering what is helping them with the transition? Are they being upskilled? Are they getting some kind of other training or guidance in shifting how they work so that they do more of that kind of strategic work?
Absolutely. I think that's always interesting when I talk to some of our employees about the impact of AI on their jobs. So I think we all have to be realistic that AI is going to absolutely change some jobs, right? So some jobs will go away, but AI is going to create new opportunities as well. So when you look at any historical industrial revolution, what you see happen is the jobs change. I think what's happening this time is the jobs are changing even faster. And so that's going to require even more training, even more focus on being upskilled. And the focus has to be for both the individuals to want to learn, but then also the opportunity that the organizations are offering to upskill. And so we've talked a lot about the specialist training that we have at EY and the 400,000 people here. What we want to make sure we're doing is giving them all the tools that they to learn about AI and then be able to apply AI at their jobs to do things in a more productive way. And then therefore their jobs they'll be able to do things with their jobs that they otherwise couldn't do. I had one individual that came to me and he was a manager. And he showed me a way that he created a discounted cash flow analysis that used to take him a couple weeks, and he can do it in a couple of days now using generative AI and our large language models. And what was nice about that is he showed how he created this, and we presented it to other tax partners. We presented it to our client. And now he can actually go in and work on some of the other more strategic opportunities as a manager that he otherwise would be doing more of the data crunching behind the scenes in his existing role. So he found it extremely helpful. The leadership found it helpful, and our clients found it helpful that he leveraged AI to do his job more effectively. So I think we're going to continue to see more of that, David. We're going to see more changes with our job, and we're going to have to make sure that our employees have all the tools that they need to leverage AI responsibly, and hopefully they'll find productivity out of it as well.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned Client Zero earlier, and clients have come up a lot, of course, in this conversation, like they inevitably would. Can you give an example or two of a particular lesson you've learned so far in EY's internal use of AI and in training for AI that you feel has proved already especially helpful to clients?
Yeah, I think Client Zero is great because it allows us to test and learn based on, with such a large profile we have of 400,000 people and the amount of data that we process. It allows us to test different technologies out first before we deploy them, and therefore we can keep the data safe and secure. And I think what's really been interesting as we look at the lessons learned is everybody's at a different point in their journey, and everybody's learning about AI along the way. One thing that we ended up standing up for ourselves that we also now have offered to our clients is what we call our EY.AI Academy. And we initially stood it up for our own executives to get trained in a multitude of scenarios around immersive experience learning, peer-to-peer learning. It allowed you to interact with AI in a way that there was role-playing. And then we learned that our clients wanted that too. And so now we've launched that with our clients. As you can imagine, training the executive teams is going to be important in any industry. And the other one that I think is really important is AI for Good. And AI for Good is, it allows us to not only focus on productivity gains, but also focuses in how do we actually help the world and society where it makes sense from a technology perspective. And at EY, what we found is that our teams and our people are really interested in doing that type of work, as you'd expect. And we've got now 27 countries in collaboration with Microsoft that we've launched what we call AI Skills Passport. And it's encouraging our employees to be curious. It's allowing them to upskill themselves and apply technologies in new ways. And what we're finding is our clients are also participating in those as well. So I think our EY for Client Zero story, it allows us to test, learn, it allows us to create more productive solutions, but it also has given us some interesting ways that we can leverage Academy for Industries, but also our AI for Good program that hopefully is going to make the world a better place.
Mm-hmm. Well, Joe, I've really enjoyed our conversation today, and thanks for coming to the podcast today.
Absolutely. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you, David. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you for listening to Enterprise Apps Unpacked, where we give the real story on the software that runs your business. To learn more about business applications, explore our content on searcherp.com. Find us on YouTube at our channel, Ion Tech. Subscribe to our podcast to receive the latest episodes as they drop. And if you liked what you heard today, give us a rating and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you're listening. Until next time.
Podcast programming and promotion by Kelsey Waddell. Podcast production and quality oversight by Anne Steshu. Music supplied by DP via Getty Images. This is an Informa TechTarget production.